and welcome to another edition of the Lost in Possession Football Podcast. Three mates, three different teams, three very different opinions. This week, as we know, the Premier League season is very much over, but there's still a whole host of international games going on to get your teeth stuck into. And this week, we have a very simple episode, a debate, a straightforward debate that's been trending this week on Twitter, divided a lot of footballing opinions, including some of the players, coming out in the press and making their opinions on it clear. Debate is simple. Is the UEFA Nations League a waste of time? Yes or no? And obviously why? As I said, it's something that has caused a lot of controversy. People do genuinely seem divided over this issue. So we're going to get our teeth stuck into it, debate it, and ultimately come to a conclusion on whether or not it's a waste of time. And also, should England therefore be taking it seriously? So, Reece, we will kick things off with you. What's your thoughts on the UEFA Nations League as a whole? Is it a waste of time? And should England take it seriously?
Yeah, I quite like the idea. I think the reason why is because if you think every time international break comes around, everyone's just, there's that sort of deflation around sort of football fans because we're bored, it's nothing that particularly we're interested in. So, and a lot of that time it's because the games were friendlies. So if there's nothing riding on it, they become pointless games. You think, why are we stopping the footballing calendar just to accommodate for friendlies? So I get why they introduced it. You got to have something to it. And even though it's taken a while to sort of get going, I think it will eventually. I think it is a good idea. I do like it. It gives teams another trophy to win because at the end of the day, nations can only win 2 trophies at the moment. Whether it's your respective continents tournament or, of course, the World Cup. So I think this gives a chance for countries to win a bit of silverware. Yeah, I do like the idea. I mean, I'm sure we'll discuss a little bit more in just a minute about whether England should take it seriously or not, especially as they take on Germany today in that tournament. But yeah, I'm all for it, and I think it should be taken a lot more seriously as a competition, not as equivalent as the World Cup or the Euros, but maybe is this an answer to a Conference League, to a Europa League, and a Champions League, for example? I think it has merit, and if we look at how Roma and Final took it, I think we should be taking it a lot more seriously.
Jamie, what do you agree with that or not?
Well, I am not a big fan of international football. I will watch the Euros. I will watch the World Cup, and that's about it. I don't watch the sort of qualifiers for either tournament, and I get what Reece is saying. The friendlies were just utterly pointless. It was never worth even watching in some of them because sometimes you are even playing teams that are like crap. But you also get that in the qualifiers where the qualifiers, obviously, with England have played San Marino quite a few times, and the score is how many above 7 is it going to be kind of scenario, which obviously if you like seeing some goals, it's not too bad, but it can be quite boring. So I get that it's better than having friendlies, and it can be more entertaining than the qualifiers because you're put into certain leagues positions, aren't you? With Group A, B, C, and D?
Yeah, different leagues it is.
Yeah, different leagues, and then obviously the winners of League A go on to fight semi-final and final. But in terms of international football, I don't need more of it. I need less of it. I think really you should be playing Euro qualifiers, World Cup qualifiers, then like maybe 2 or 3 friendlies before the tournament and the tournaments. That's kind of it for me. I think it's just another money-grabbing scheme that UEFA and FIFA are trying to do, because I just don't think it's necessary. And then you've even got, I can talk about 3 City players who have come out about it. De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva have said we don't need it. It's a waste of time. they're already playing enough games. I know they're on these huge amount of money, but we don't want to see the top professionals getting injured, do we? We want to watch the best players play. Otherwise, it's going to turn more into it matters about your squad depth rather than your main team, because you've played so many games, your best players are injured. Have you got the replacements? I know as a City fan, like, we do have some of that sort of squad depth of quality, but it's just going to become more and more of a thing. And it may even, like, I'm being dramatic here, but it may even be like American football sort of squads, or have a first half team and a second half team, because they keep adding on subs and then just to try and not get them injured. It's something I'm just not a fan of, really. I do see some pros when you sort of talk about, I think if you think of like the lower league teams, if you think of San Marino, for example, that I think they've drawn maybe 2 games in their existence as being a football team. At least this gives them competitive games, because when they play in the qualifiers, they play everyone who's better than them. At least they're getting to sort of play against teams at their level. And it's technically in a competition where they're not going to get to the Euros or World Cup.
They only lost 2-0 the other day, so I guess that's a step in the right direction.
Well, yeah, I saw there's a San Marino fan account on Twitter, and they celebrated that they scored a disallowed goal kind of thing. It's kind of just sort of, obviously that's a whole different ball game compared to if you talk about the top professionals. So I see some benefits for it, but I'm fairly negative about international football anyway. But I think this is just an additional competition that's just not needed.
Yeah.
And if England should take it seriously, look, if you're in it, you might as well. That's kind of the scenario. I think it can be sort of seen as a good idea to see where you are at, what level you're actually at. And then you can sort of possibly play around with sort of tactics and stuff and see what would work for the World Cup or the Euros. But we've got Southgate. I don't see him doing that much tinkering with his tactics, to be perfectly honest. George, I don't know what you're going to say, because we've got one yes, one no.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm somewhere in the middle. I think both of you make valid points. I think there is a lot of international games, and you kind of normally when international fixtures occur, everyone is kind of, sighing a little bit. Oh, it's the international break, and everyone's a little bit disappointed. I think in this case, where it's come at the end of the season, and it's in the summer where there's not going to be any football as such, I think in this case it's probably a better example of where UEFA Nations League can be a good thing, because the alternative is nothing. We're not breaking up the Premier League season. We're not breaking up the Champions League to have pointless international friendlies. So in that sense, I do think Nations League enhances the experience as such. And I think the point about good teams and matching teams with similar level teams, I think that's definitely the biggest kind of USP of the Nations League. As you said, San Marino in a group where they get battered 8-0 every week just doesn't do anyone any favors, really. And it is just a waste of time. But now we've got, as we've said in England's group alone, we had Hungary the other day. Admittedly, I did have the suffering of having to watch the whole game. That was the equivalent of a friendly in terms of the quality. Obviously, yes, maybe that's an isolated incident. Maybe it's just a one-off game. But that was dull. However, we've got England, Germany now. We've got England, Italy. A Euros final repeat to look forward to. So in that sense, I do think there's attractive games, and I'd still watch England versus Italy in a friendly. I'd still watch England versus Germany in a friendly. So now it's got a bit of meaning to it. It's actually got a league ranking, and there's a trophy at stake. I'm kind of siding on the fact I do actually prefer it. I think as well, when you look at the integrity of a competition, you have to look at the winners. And so far, the 2 winners of the Nations League have been Portugal, Euros winners, as we know, and France, who are many people's eyes, the best international team right now in terms of squad depth. So in that sense, you have to take it seriously if you're in it. And I think, joining that list, it might sound a bit savage, but for England's perspective, we haven't won something in how many years. We're almost like the international equivalent of Spurs. We're at a point where we will take any trophy, any form of success. So sorry, Spurs fans, but in that sense, I think any significant trophy is something we should put our hearts into and give it a go. And yeah, although some players have kind of slated it, obviously KDB, as we said, that obviously doesn't help the integrity of the competition. But all in all, I do think it's probably a more positive thing. And if we win it, we'll all be buzzing. And if we're not, it's a Mickey Mouse contest, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, just building that, I've got sorry, Jeremy, I've got a couple of points. So I think the issue I do have with it is we only play European countries. Well, we've already got a tournament for that. So it is a bit like, well, what's the point? But I think what would be a good idea to introduce is to actually give an incentive to win it. Is it possible to give the winner automatic qualification to the next Euros, for example? Because then you'll see because then if that team automatically qualifies, then an extra slot will go to another team in the Euros, which could go to a lesser country in terms of their footballing ability. So I think that would work, and I'd help that drive interest. And I think that would be very, very good to get some competition going amongst countries, because there's always that risk that, for example, England didn't qualify for the Euros in 2008. There's always that something you think, okay, we can fall back on this, And if you looked at when France and Portugal won it, they cared about it, I would argue that a lot of these players slating it, I would argue that, yes, I understand that De Bruyne is a serial winner at club level, but Belgium haven't achieved anything. So maybe you should want to win it, and I listen to some players saying they're not bothered about it. And I look at them, what have you won? There are some players that haven't won a thing. And I mean,
I do want to just counter that though, because Bernardo Silva, Portugal have won it, still said the same thing. So you've got someone who's won the competition still saying it's just not that important. So I do think I get what you're saying with De Bruyne, because Belgium have this sort of same level like England, where we've not. Well, I don't think Belgium have won a competition. If they have, I just don't know. But yeah, so I do get what you're saying with the De Bruyne part. But then when you've got Bernardo Silva, someone who's won the competition, saying it, I don't think it's just showing that players don't want it.
Yeah, but he wasn't saying that when he was lifting the trophy, though, was he? It's only because it cuts into his beach time this summer.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, to be honest. I think the KDB examples of it, I do agree. I think that's very strong. And so, on the flip side, look, you could flip it the other way and go, the only known players who have come out against it is KDB, Bernardo Silva. They're the only ones I've seen. Jamie, I think you might have said a third. I don't know if you saw anyone else.
No, so to be fair, I was talking about John Stones. He actually came out saying he wants to win it. He wants to play because he's sort of saying he likes representing his country. So
yeah,
it was 2 negative, 1 positive.
Yeah,
but yeah, so I've not seen a lot more.
I was going to say, I guess the case you could make is that only two or so out of 500 odd players in the competition have come out and slated it. So in that sense, you can assume maybe the majority of people do still want to play it. But so many players come out and say it anyway. But representing their country, even players get called up for the first time for friendlies, it's still one of the privileges and honours of their life to represent their country. So I do think it is a significant trophy. It is backed up now by 2 strong winners to kick it off. And ultimately, only the teams in League A can win it. So there is an incentive for lower teams to get up to the big time, as it were, and progress that way. So I do still think, just another point as well, Reece, I think you mentioned it. We were all very much, when, the Conference League is probably a good parallel. When that came out, everyone was like, oh, this is a joke. It's just getting ridiculous. But actually, the teams in the Conference League did do that tournament a lot of credit. And you saw how much it meant to Roma. You saw how much it meant to Jose Mourinho, who's one of the most decorated coaches in world football, in tears at winning it. So in that sense, I do think it's only as serious as players and teams take it. And if all the teams step up, it should be a good competition. And you look at Italy. Italy aren't going to the World Cup. They're European champions. Surely they're looking at this going, we need to win this. It's all we've got. It's all we've got for 2 years. So I'm surely Italy are going to go all guns blazing and desperately want to win that as well.
I just want to counter the sort of Conference League sort of point, because the difference between this and the Conference League is like, right, you're not good enough for Champions League. You're not good enough for Europa. You can have another competition. I think that's where people were like, the quality is going to be crap. You're going to be playing in Timbuktu, where you've seen like the pictures with the train going round kind of thing. It's sort of like, that's where I think it gets, that's why I believe that one's discredited rather than it sort of, I guess, to be fair, the teams did do a lot of credit for it when it got to the fight, like the progress to the sort of quarterfinals, where you had teams that you could argue probably should be in Europa going on to try and win it. But with obviously the Nations League, it's kind of something that I did think Reece said as well. It's, you've already got a competition with all European teams in it. So why do we need another? But then you can't just add in everyone to it. Otherwise, you've now just got a World Cup. That's the kind of thing. It's kind of, I don't really see a balance for it. And then if you want to go with sort of Reece's idea with the incentive to get to the World Cup, for example, like there's no chance then for if you're in that year, you're in League B, League C, League D, you don't have that chance to win it.
Yeah.
You have to sort of progress upwards, and it could take years, because you could have a team like, I don't know, a country that could just get on, like they could just get 10 players out of absolutely nowhere that are class, and they've got no chance of doing that. But then, yeah, it's just sort of obviously they can still qualify during the normal qualifications, but I don't know. I just don't. Yeah, I just think it's adding on sort of more games, where we're just going to have all year round football, which is, I think,
is that a bad thing? Is that a bad thing?
It's going to eventually cause a decrease in quality, I think.
Yeah, players do need a break at one stage.
Because they've not really had one in a few years. I know it's been like COVID times, but last year was the Euros. Year before that, I think there was something else.
Are they playing these games now because of the World Cup is in winter this year?
Yes.
That's why it's a little bit of a messed up, because I don't remember them playing it time last year. So I think it might just be.
No. So the World Cup,
it was gone a little bit funny.
Yeah, the World Cup was due to start this Friday. Or last Friday, sorry.
Friday,
that's also another point with it. Sort of like the World Cup is sort of, I'm hoping it's a one-off, because I prefer it being in the summer, to be perfectly honest, rather than disrupting the Premier League season. I'll see anyway. We haven't experienced one in the winter, to be fair, so I don't want to sort of be too negative about it. But when you've got, like, I feel like people have had the Euros moments of last year. We had the World Cup where everyone was out. What are they going to do this time? All be out in our big coats kind of thing, freezing cold.
We'll get burned every time we score. Hot chocolate on the arm, burning you.
Yeah, or it's absolutely raining, just going down cats and dogs kind of thing, But I don't know. It's sort of like, then with the Nations League, if it wasn't the World Cup was in the summer, it's then in the way again.
Yeah,
I know we have international breaks, and sort of, I guess some people, like we've done this season, we've gone to lower leagues down and watch them, so it kind of still gives that opportunity. So I think that's the only positive I have for the international break, where you can go and support your local team, or you can go down a few divisions, for example, to go and see it. But yeah, like I said, I don't really care for international football until it's the major tournaments. Then I'll try and watch as much as I can.
No, that's a fair point. But when we were saying about should England take it seriously, I think England have to. As Jordan said, they've achieved nothing since 1966. A lot of those players can go, "Oh, we nearly won. The Euros. We got to the semis of the World Cup." No one remembers the loser. No one cares. There's no point being a bridesmaid. You want to be a bride. So the point of it is they have to take it seriously, because then their mentality might actually change. They might actually start winning things. You're telling me that Harry Kane doesn't want to win it? Of course he does.
Of course,
I
can't win
understand.
anything else, can he?
Jordan Pickford doesn't want to win it. He hasn't won anything. So some of those players will want it. And I think their attitudes will change towards it when they're lifting that trophy. We'd argue that the Carabao Cup or the League Cup, as it's originally known, got a lot of stick for being a pointless trophy. But you're trying to tell me that Man City players don't want to win that? When you start to win it and you get a sniff of silverware and success, it becomes important. And that's how I see it. But I do think it needs more of an incentive to it, some sort of reward for winning it in order to give teams motivation to want to take part.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do agree there needs to be more incentive. But as Jamie said, you're then basically saying if you're in League B, there's nothing, obviously you can get promoted into League A next year, but there's not enough. There'd maybe have to be an incentive at every level to make that work. But also going back to that point, I said it earlier, but I think, 100% England should take it seriously. It's still a good opportunity as well for Southgate to try out a few different options and a few different players. We've seen a few come in to the team in the last two games. And you're spot on. Germany and Italy are in England's group. Hungary, to be fair, although yes, they're the underdogs, they caused, I think, both Germany and France issues in the World Cup. So even the worst team in the group's, a serious threat. And I think let's say England were to win the group, to say you've beat Germany and Italy, the European champions, and then you've got to a semi-final where you're probably going to have to play, Spain or someone else, and then a final. It doesn't matter. That breeds confidence. If they were to go and win that, as you said, it's a winning mentality. It's confidence. Southgate can then sit there and go, "I've won a trophy," and maybe it buys him a bit of sort of respect and maybe a bit of time as well. And just on the subject, obviously we've just discussed injuries. Calvin Phillips has just gone off injured after 20 minutes in England, Germany. So maybe that
rumored City signing, like
there you go. Maybe that leans into the point about injuries. I don't know, but I think it's a tough one. But personally, to conclude, I'd say yes. I'd say no, it's not a waste of time, and yes, England should take it seriously.
Well,
just needs to dampen a little bit. Just needs a bit of rejigging, I think.
To be fair, I'm going to say yes, it's a waste of time, but because you're in it, you might as well take it seriously. Like, no one wants to ever lose a football game. Even when we're playing on Sunday with just our mates, we still want to win that game. It doesn't matter. You always want to win. And for some players, like you mentioned with Kane, Pickford especially, he's not going to win a silverware with Everton. I'm sorry, but it's just not, is he? Kane, there might be a chance, but it's looking unlikely with the way Spurs keep going. Then you've obviously got the likes of sort of some City players, Chelsea players, a few of the Arsenal players maybe won the FA Cup, but like there is team players in there who have won a lot of trophies, and it still should matter to them because that's their playing career. But at the end of the day, it's the only other positive actually I was thinking about it was the groups are a lot more, I don't know, exciting. I can't remember what our Euros group was, but I think we had Scotland,
Croatia,
and I can't remember the other team. We beat them, but it's sort of like this group seems much more exciting. And if you look at our World Cup group, I know what's a tougher group. It's already the Nations League group is already tough, much tougher than what the World Cup group is. I know it's a bit different with different continents, so you can't really. It's harder to sort of make it all impact and exciting, but I guess it can be sort of exciting especially if you do like international football. It is something that could be quite exciting seeing the best teams play each other. But like I say, England should take it seriously.
Just a quick note on other teams. You both mentioned it. I was reading earlier, I think from the 2024-25 season, they are looking at adding around 6 South American teams. So the likes of Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, I think Ecuador. A few of those teams could enter the mix. So it won't just necessarily be a European thing, which could make the groups even more high quality, even more interesting.
That'd be pretty good. I think having the winner of the continent tournament from each continent would be a good idea. I mean, you can't really make out of that. There's only about 6 teams, but I think you could include a good mix there, and again give them an incentive to be part of it. You know, winner gets automatic qualification for World Cup or whatever, unless of course they're the host. So something like that. Yeah, I think you could add more to it. You know, you've got to give it something, because friendlies at the moment, friendlies just aren't. They're just not cutting it, are they? You know, it's the same thing. You know, you don't tend to play competitive countries either in a friendly. You tend to play, you know, teams who know that you should beat, and I don't really think that achieves much.
Well, there you have it. So that wraps us up for another week's episode. As always, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Is the Nations League a waste of time? And should England be taking it seriously? Outside of that, as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.
Here we go.